What does being an activist mean to you?
Activism, we also call it militance here in the Tapajós region. We need to understand that we are not in the territory, as we usually say. We are the territory. And as I said, we are in the territory too, which is the city. The city is also a territory. So when we understand that we are part of this territory and that we need this territory to live, we cannot live in a territory where there are not trees or a river that runs in front of our city. All of this is part of a territory and it's a part of who we are. So being an activist means understand that we need to preserve this place where we live, regardless of whether it's in the city, in a territory with river, village. We need to preserve this place. So when we understand this, we understand that we need to fight for this territory, and if from that moment on we become militants or activists.
Because we are there, because we have training, we have technical knowledge, we know what we are doing. We didn't just leave place and go for a walk. We went to work with specific demands, with a whole strategy and everything very well worked out, from years of work, for you to come and be delegitimized by one guy.
Wow, we have the resource we have, besides the association, is to resort to the bodies that should support the community, like the federal public ministry, state public ministry, right, and INCRA itself. But we don't have a positive response regarding this problem that occurs in our community.
In the past, people were more conscious about preserving. Back then, just to plant a cassava field, it was 1 plot, 2 plots, maybe 3 or 4. People would work for 2 years on that plot, and there was no need to use machines like they do now. We're in an area with little forest left. Over there in Belterra, it's all been cleared out for planting.
When I came to Santarém to study journalism, I lived in a house of an uncle of mine, who was also an activist during the military dictatorship, Ivan Sadek. So he was another example I had in my life. And in college, I met professors who worked with environment journalism, who work in social movements, and I got to know the social movement, which was the Tapajós Vivo movement. When I went to the first meeting, it was like it wake up me and everything made sense that I needed to defend the territory where I was now living, which was the Tapajós territory, the Santarém territory. And then when we realize that the cities is also a territory, we understand that it goes beyond us. Because as I said, we usually say that we are not the territory, we are the territory. Even the territory of city. I need to defend the forest, I need to defend the river, and that is what I believe. I believe that I need to defend the place where I am. I need to defend people's well-being because that is my part of my well-being.
Regarding these issues, right, usually people do activist work and their work of gathering documentation, making recommendations, and going to the government to demand improvements in relation to these points. We're not really able to do this kind of regional work ourselves. That's mostly up to the regional working groups. They are the ones who take on that role of saying, hey, we're facing this problem. There are several environmental issues happening here and nothing's being done. Let's try to do something about it. That kind of action is much more the responsibility of the regional and local groups. That involves talking to politicians, trying to influence existing laws, and also engaging in activism, actually going out into the streets, making noise, and saying, look, this is happening. But we're also constantly taking a stand on everything that's going on, putting pressure on the government. We also frequently write formal complaints. It's very common for us to draft and send these. Sometimes we send them directly to the government, or we release a public statement with recommendations for solving the issue. So we do all this work, research, legal analysis. We have other published studies as well. So when we decide to tackle an issue, we often need time. Sometimes it's very urgent, and when it first happens, we're not able to act immediately. But afterwards, we're able to study what happened, review the legislation, put together the documentation, and carry out that more technical work of going to the government with these reports. So it's a lot more complex than just it happened and you take action right away.
Nowadays, the consequences of environmental problems have been preserved more than ever, and with that, new solutions have been debated. Many suggestions have come into play on this topic in recent years.
So large project being installed in the Amazon here in the Tapajós region, this also generates impact, right? Soybean generates impact, the timber system also generates impact. So all of this we need public policies and the government in particular very strong in this, and social movement activists and militants are also in this organization. Environmental organizations fight precisely for this, that we can slow things down a little, mitigate this climate change, because we are already experiencing this and it is already a very strong impact. We believe and have scientific data on this, that in the future this will be 10 times worse. The data shows that in the future this will be 10 times worse. So, what we are trying to do as young people today is to ensure that we young people of the future do not feel this impact.
Wow, the message I leave is, let's say, for the competent authorities, is that they can enforce the law. If they enforce the law, is already a great help, isn't it? The problem is that it's not happening. The law is not being enforced, right? They turn a blind eye to the environmental crimes that are happening in the community, like the degradation of fruits. The Silvio Hall de Moura prison itself, which is a state prison, is built in a PPA area, right? And for the community in general, is that they also help us, right? Preserving, fighting, publicizing the work, for example, of the community in relation to the environmental struggles that we have within the community.
One of the things we can do in our daily lives to avoid this pollution is the issue of garbage. It is essential, even though people say, oh, really? It really helps. We dispose of garbage correctly. Plastic with plastic, metal with metal, glass with glass. This helps a lot. Another issue is the unnecessary use of electricity during the day when we have natural light. This is also helps. Many people think it doesn't, but it really does help. And one thing that is much close to our reality here is the consumption of natural products, family farming. Whoa, the issue of family farming contributes a lot so that we not only contributing for the territory where we live to the people here in our region, but also to avoiding this pollution.
It's a way for nature to provide and a way for me to be grateful and to preserve it. Because when I go, I live for the others, right? So it's about having that care, that preservation.
One highlight is the idea of the green economy, encouraging practices that can combine environmental protection with economic growth, such as the use of renewable energy, electric mobility, nature tourism, eco-design, among many other things.
I honestly think that we still have a very large opening for outsiders to enter Santarém and the lower Tapajós region as a whole, and the Amazon in general. We have major project there in Belo Monte, which destroyed the Xingu River and the people of the Xingu region. They are still experiencing these impacts today. We have major impact in Paijuruti Velho, which is nearby a day's drive away from meaning which impact and continues to impact the lives of these peoples. And the government turns a blind eye of all of this, and that's basically it, right? So we end up not having any regulation. We activists, the peoples of these territories, end up fighting kind of alone, not kind of, completely alone. We don't have this support from the government. We are watching the Amazon being destroyed year after year. We only see this deforesting increasing. We only see the impact increasing, and we also see climate change getting worse, especially for people from the Amazon biome.
We're constantly denouncing a lot of things, especially in international space. At COP 2023, which took place in Dubai, I don't know if you remember or heard about the Braskem case in Maceió. There was that whole neighborhood where the Braskem company was operating. They were extracting salt there, and the entire neighborhood had to be evacuated because the ground was sinking and a massive crater opened up. At this time, this wasn't being covered by the media. Braskem was avoiding all responsibility, and they weren't paying any compensation to the people who had to leave their homes. And during COP, we had a volunteer with us who was from Maceió, and she spoke out. She grabbed the microphone at the event and said, "This is happening, this and that. Braskem is responsible and they're doing nothing. This is an environmental crime and no one's doing anything about it." I remember that Braskem pulled out of all events they had scheduled at COP. They canceled their entire participation, and the issue gained international attention. It was covered by media around the world because of the one public denouncement we made in that space. So these spaces are also used for that kind of denouncement, especially when the press is involved, and large corporations that should be held accountable for environmental responsibilities are present. I mean, imagine, you're destroying an entire neighborhood, displacing people from their homes, and at the same time, you're at the COP giving talks about environmental preservation. It makes no sense.
The solution is within our reach. Adopting conscious consumption habits and investing in clean energy sources like solar and wind power. Every small action matters. Reducing waste, recycling, and choosing sustainable products can truly transform the world. But still,
When you think about a conscious environment proposal, it is still very focused on enhancement. That word stays in evidence: enhancement, enhancement, and enhancement, while the real necessity is omitted: the development of environmental awareness.
I'm certain that environmental education is essential. I worked with it in Santarin's public schools through a radio project and saw how it impacts not only children but their families and communities too. The information is spread, children bring it home, parents become aware, and so many are participating. This awareness leads people to defend their neighborhood and care for their environment, showing that even small actions like recycling make a big difference.
Wow, the message I leave is, let's say, for the competent authorities, is that they can enforce the law. If they enforce the law, is already a great help, isn't it? The problem is that it's not happening. The law is not being enforced, right? They turn a blind eye to the environmental crimes that are happening in the community, like the degradation of creeds. The Silvio Hall de Moura prison itself, which is a state prison, is built in a PPA area, right? And for the community in general, is that they also help us, right? Preserving, fighting, publicizing the work, for example, of the community in relation to the environmental struggles that we have within the community.
more than individual actions, we need collective efforts. Communities, business, and governments must work together, creating effective public policies, promoting environmental education, and developing green technologies.
But I think that, when I want to talk about problems that I face as a youth in these spaces, I think it goes a little further, because I think that the biggest problem we have is funding. People don't want to fund us. Like, they don't want to fund the youth, because they don't, like, in most people's minds, youth is cute, so you can take a picture, so you can be there and have youth in this space, but you don't give them a voice. You don't get funding. Going to this conference is expensive. Not everyone gets funding to go, but there are many people who have different demands, who should be in these spaces, you know? It is still a big problem being a young activist and receiving funding to be in these spaces and put the demands of your territory there. Besides, you get to the space and most of the time people discredit you a lot, because people have this idea that the youth don't have the knowledge, don't have the technique to be in these spaces.
The main challenge we activists face is that we are often alone, without finding legal support or security. We volunteer because we believe in defending our territory, but we face threats, persecution, and slander. People think we want to save the Amazon, but really, we just want to protect the place where we live. Society needs to understand that we are not against them or against development. We are for protecting our shared territory so everyone can enjoy it, whether it's swimming in the river or relaxing in nature. We oppose development at any cost, deforestation, displacement, pollution, and destruction. We're not against progress, but against harmful, careless development.
I'd say to young people, to the new generations, mine was one, and now I'm 52 years old. That was one generation. For those of you who are 13, 14, 15, I'd say, you need to take care of this, guide others, because we only think about studies. And then people say, no, we have to work this way, do it like this.
First, I want to say that don't give up. It's very difficult, we will encounter severe obstacles, but I think that our main goal, our final goal, is much bigger than all these problems that we face.
Sustainability is not a distant dream. It's an urgent mission that begins with each of us, right here and right now. Every choice we make, no matter how small, has the power to shape the world we live in. Let's rethink our daily habits, reduce waste, conserve natural resources, and take meaningful steps to protect the environment. Together, we can build a healthier, fairer, and more resilient planet for future generations. The future depends on the action and decisions we commit to today.